First of all, good evening, everyone. Obviously, that was going to be, I knew that was going to be the first question about Saido. There's a lot of media speculation surrounding it because of the way in which it's, I'd say, ended rather than the way in which it's kind of been conducted. The club's position is that he didn't want to sell Saido. He's got 2 years left on his contract. He's scored a lot of goals for us in the last 2 years. Certainly last season his goals helped keep us where we are in the Premier League. He's a young player that's been at the club I think probably around 12 years. You know, we've put a lot of time and effort and investment into him. Saido's an ambitious boy. You know, man who wants to push on, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with that at all. He came back from England the 21s this year in the Euros with an injury. He missed the first part of the pre-season, didn't go out to Austria, and therefore had been working his way back to fitness and got himself back in there. There was a lot of press speculation, a lot of rumours about what was going to happen. Somebody was going to come in, this club was going to come in, that club was going to come in. I had one inquiry from a club, well, I won't name, but just made an inquiry probably right at the start of June, just generally asking what the plans were with him. But no offers, just a general chit-chat like often happens. And that was it. And then around I think it was probably around mid-August, the chairman was speaking to Tottenham about Fazio, about that deal, which had been ongoing for about 2 weeks and been progressing. And that there was a question asked about Berahino, about his availability, to which the chairman said that we weren't interested in selling him. That was prompted 3 days later with an official offer from Tottenham, which was not acceptable, was way off the mark, was just rejected out of hand. At the same time as that offer came in, there was a transfer request put in by the player, and I suppose you can read into the timing, you know, what you want in relation to the bid coming in and the transfer request on the same day. Again, you know, that was rejected, and Saido was told that he wouldn't be leaving. There was then a further offer a week later, which again was way off the mark, both not only in terms of the amount, but also in terms of the structure of how it would have, the payment structure. And then that was it. There was lots of to-ing and fro-ing conversations taking place, and then it wasn't until yesterday that we received a third offer in the morning, and then a final offer in the mid-afternoon, at which stage neither was the offer or the structure acceptable, and we were completely left without being able to get a replacement in for a player. And that was it, really. That was it as far as the club was concerned. Obviously, Saido spoke to me, spoke to the chairman, made it, you know, as it got towards the end, you know, was asking what was happening, and he hasn't got at the moment a representative as such that he's acting on his behalf. I say hasn't got. You don't know behind the scenes, but his official representative was no longer acting for him. So, there was just direct conversations with ourselves. And at the end of the day, the Saido's got 2 years left. I think we all know that every player in the world has got a price. You know, but if you don't want to sell something, you don't necessarily put a price on it. You know, if you want to sell your house, you'd say what the price is because you want people to buy it. If you don't want to sell your house, then somebody's got to make you an offer that you think, oh, I'm interested, but that didn't happen. So, in a nutshell, that's it. Obviously, then Saido tweeted what he tweeted, and he's been given an extended leave of absence until early part of next week, just for things to settle down and for everybody just to reflect where we are. I think, as I say, every player's got a price, and if the price is right, then you can use that money, but you can't do it with 6 hours to go. You can't use the money with 6 hours to go. There were no replacements available. There were other players. Listen, we weren't sat there, we were preparing for possible eventualities, different ways, because it would be remiss of us not to do that, you know. But as it clocked down and got to the final day, your hands are tied, and then you start doing deals that aren't right for the club. And we didn't ever want to be in the situation like we have in the past, where we've done deals on the last day. because it's not good for the club.
Okay, thank you very much.
I think he was recommended as going back. I think I've explained this before. The target list that was put up for that season, there was 3 strikers, of which he was one of them, which the recruitment department had recommended. Unfortunately, what happens in football is that at the time it was Alan Irvine who didn't know the player and was reliant upon the recommendations of that recruitment department. And if recruitment works where the department put recommendations forward, they sift through players, they get to a stage where they can put it into their coaching staff, be it the assistant manager, head coach, whoever it is, and they get sort of the final say and sign off of it. We've never signed a player that the head coach didn't sign off on, didn't have a say on. But in that case, Alan wasn't aware of those players, and unless there are alternatives put forward, you go off the recommendations of it. In hindsight, he should have been, well, they all should have been thoroughly reviewed. But if you remember, Pepe Mel was on the way out, so he wasn't really doing any recruitment work. Alan was new coming in, and so had not had a chance to look, so he got presented with it. So,
are you saying it was a case of having to choose one of these strikers?
Those were the recommendations. Yeah, it wasn't like it just plucked out of thin air. And we had reports on him. He'd been looked at 4 or 5 times over a period of time. It wasn't like we didn't know the player. There were reports he'd been seen live. But you would have wanted those reports to. You would ideally want it to be the head coach or the assistant head coach or somebody. But there was no way that could happen at the time. And his goal scoring record was good. What you could see on the clips of him was good. He's actually a really good guy, good character. We've always worked with the head coach in terms of selection of players. They will always have final say. You're right that since Dan Ashworth left, we haven't really found a sort of suitable replacement. But that's probably because Dan was so successful that it created a model that worked with him in there, and now we've struggled to find a replacement for that. And we've not, so in terms of how we do business, we've not really changed as such. Maybe the emphasis has changed in that someone like Tony comes in, he's very hands-on, wants to get involved, he knows everybody, he's got a massive network of people, he will speak to everybody and anybody about players, he wants to get to the bottom of what players are like, he'll speak to whoever it may be. And much more than I've ever seen in anybody else to that. So he's very much I won't say driving it, but he's very much sort of the forefront of ideas on players. But we still have a back room of scouts, we still have a database of knowledge, we still have other people going out to watch games that he interacts with and speaks to and phones. So it's all creating that everyone's together. Because for one person to do it, it's nigh on impossible. You are reliant on the people around you, but ultimately that person has to make a decision. But it has to make a decision in conjunction with the chairman in terms of from a financial point of view, and also from myself in terms of how it's structured. Because sometimes managers say, I'll have that and we'll do that, but it doesn't always work. You can't, for various reasons, you can't do it. Be it a work permit, be it you're not allowed to do that as a contract. So you try and bring it together. But the club has spent £36 million, right? We spend what we earn, okay? Our wages to income ratio is the highest in the Premier League, right? So the idea that we've kind of kept something in the cupboard is absolute nonsense. This is the highest we've ever spent transfer fees-wise. We spent in this calendar year, in these last 2 windows, we've spent £40 million, right? And our wage bill is around £55 million. The wage cap is £60 million. All right, and our turnover is such that we just can't just keep going. So players, you're right, players do have to go out to fund them coming in, right? And if Saido had gone out, then there would have been some surplus cash. But when you're being offered £2.50 in a year, right, you can't spend it because another club down the road, who you're trying to buy their best player, won't do it the same deal. So yeah, they have to match up. It's not, as I say, it's not simply going into a shop and going, I've got some money in my pocket, I'll have that one, and getting it off the shelf, because it just doesn't work like that. But Yes, I think, would we like to have done more business if possible? Probably, yes. But are we happy with the squad? And have we got a stronger squad than we had last year? Yes. It's just as simple as that. The recruitment department, because Terry and Merv and Dave gone, it is an area that we do need to strengthen. I think we've said once the window was out of the way, we would look at strengthening that. Ideally, you would have head of recruitment and senior scouts. But those scouts have to be, what Tony would like is the scouts to come in and make a recommendation to him. It's very easy for me to say, right, okay, here's a list of 10, over to you, you choose one. What he'd prefer is you should sign this one or this one and then explain why and back it up with, well, come and watch, these are the games that we've seen, these are the reports that we've got, this is what they've said about him. Actually, go and watch a live one. He's playing next week. This is where they are, and he'll send one of your guys out to watch it. That's how it should be, and that's what we're trying to build. In the past, we have scouted extensively across Europe, and we've had part-time scouts in pretty much every country in Europe. And what we found is that we ended up with that amount of information on a lot of players, and what we needed was that amount of information on a few players, and that's what we're trying to achieve now, and that's where we're moving to. So we'll probably have a smaller scouting department in terms of actual numbers, but better quality and quantity of information on a smaller number of players, which fit the profile of what Tony's looking for, the DNA, as people say. And the DNA is different from head coach to head coach, but Tony's DNA is quite clear. You're asking about including the lower divisions, right? The issue with the lower divisions is not, we scout them as extensively as anywhere else. The issue with the lower divisions is probably the gap now is that much that taking a player out of League One into the Premier League is difficult. I think where the club could, part of the future would be taking those players out of like a non-league or even League One, like a Craig Dawson or a Jamie Vardy or someone like that, taking them earlier, letting them have a season, 2 seasons within the club, maybe a loan, something like that, with them to then grow into the first team. You can only do that when you've got a stable club where you've got maybe younger players. So the fact that we signed a Johnny Evans and a Chester and a Rondon who were like mid-20s, is trying to say not every season do we want to be making 9 or 10 acquisitions. We'd like to be in a situation where we're doing 3 or 4, right? And then 2 younger ones to develop and bring the ones from the academy through as well. I think it's hard to bring the transition from under 21s football as it is to get it into first team football is hard. I think there are questions as to whether the under 21 model is correct, and that's across football. I'm not speaking out of turn there, but that's something that I think everybody's looking at, particularly the quality of the games programme and the competitiveness. I think to be fair, I look at Saido, he's through, George Thorne, all right, he didn't quite work out with us, that's probably for slightly different reasons, but he's now playing at Derby. Chris Wood has just signed at Leeds. Izzy Brown would have been playing in this team if he was still here. He's now he's at Chelsea at Vitas Arm. Jerome Sinclair, who's at Liverpool. So we've had players coming through, and I would say if we run with a smaller squad, say 19, 20, Tony would like to supplement it with players coming through. The trick now, we've got a great set of young players coming through at this moment in time. Really, really good. A lot of them went to Austria with Tony, and they're great. But it's not just about technical ability. They need to learn the game, and how do you create an environment where they can learn the game? I'm not sure under 21s football by itself is the right way, and it's how you get them through. I think, to be fair, in terms of the examples that you gave, Liam O'Neill was 22, so he wasn't even under 21 anymore. He would have been in our 25-man squad, and he'd been around the club a lot. And I think Tony had a good look at him pre-season, and Liam wanted to play first-team football. And the deal was right for the club. If he's successful in the future, we get something back. So if we can't produce players that are going to play in our first team, if we can produce players that then add value, so we get something back from the huge investment that we put in over the last sort of 10 years into it, then great. But I'm really, really excited by the group of players that we've got, coming through. Certainly in this sort of 17, 18-year-olds that are coming through. There's some really good talent there, and we just hope that we can now create the right environment to bring them through. But there are some good players. And I hear what you say about him being player of the year. Yeah, and he was great for us for that year. But I think Tony wanted to try and bring in younger players. Wanted to bring in James Chester, Johnny Evans, younger players. We were worried about the age of that back line, with Jolyon, Gareth and Jonas. And I think it was a good deal for everyone. The club looked at it and said, okay, if you wanted to go and we could get a replacement in, and we felt the price was, bearing in mind he came in on a free, because we didn't see it as a long-term solution. Eventually it would have, with a year left, it would have fizzled out. But I hear what you say, because I can't deny the fact that he was, and he did do very well. He did do well. Adil Narvik is a footballer first and foremost. So, from a football point of view, that's got to be right. Adil is coming up to 21, and he scored goals. He had a setback because he had a knee injury. He missed probably pretty much a season, right? But he's technically excellent, very good player. He scored goals in the 21s regularly in the last 2 years, but for some reason can't get a loan move, domestically. Lots of people look at him, but nobody at the moment is taking the chance, and I don't know why. Well, I think he's not. He trains regularly with the first team. He went away on pre-season, so it's not the idea that they've not been given a chance. We'll only play players on merit, and we spoke to Adil and said, Adil, it's up to you. If you're interested in this and want to explore it, that's entirely down to you. We're not saying yes or no. We're not. The club's not getting anything in return in terms of we've not. No, well, no, but as a spin-off, it is. But it's not. We're not financially. We're not. It's not like we're getting a loan fee or that there's a. It's not. Yeah, and if it's a different avenue for a deal to playing, he's going to be playing with. Roberto Carlos is the manager, and John R. Ruiz is out there, and Florent Malouda's out there, and it's probably he wasn't going to develop any further playing under 21s football because he's played it for the last 4 years. And if he can't go out on loan, he has to find a pathway, and his pathway might be slightly different from somebody else. It's a nightmare because you back the wrong horse. But players now are quite savvy in that they don't always sign a representation agreement with an agent. So if you represented me, Alan, and we had a contract, it's easy to do. I know you're the agent. Well, we know who you're representing. There's a piece of paper saying that. But if you're a player and you go, right, I'm coming up to free in the market, I'm not signing with anybody. Everybody in this room, you bring me the best deal that you can, right? And I'll go with you. So then you all phone me, all of you. You all phone me. And how am I supposed to know which one I go with? Because all you can then do is you use your experience and your instinct to go, he's a chancer, that's a fly-by-night. Oh, I know him. We've done deals before. I know he can deliver. So you try and back the one that you can deliver. But it gets very complicated because certainly with foreign players, they have foreign agents who often don't speak English, who buddy up with English agents to get it done. But then even the foreign agents give out these things called mandates to people. And you've been presented with 5 or 6 mandates, or even forged mandates, or it's just and now anybody can be an agent. Anybody can act as an agent. Anybody in this room could be an agent. Well, the cake is only so big, and it can only be cut in so many ways. So the club's just expected to make the cake a bit bigger.